a better Nigeria? Is it a myth, or do we keep hoping?
Nigeria is a highly religious country. How come corruption thrives?
Why is adoption not encouraged in Nigeria?
Is there a future for the Nigerian youth?
Being rich and famous, is that the only drive to be an artist?
What makes a great nation? Is it the leaders? What about the people?
This is Answers with Dr. Reju. Hi, my name is Onari, and this is Answers with Dr. Reju, where critical life issues are clarified. Give us a call or chat us on WhatsApp on 081-4456-9000. With me in the studio today is Obi Brown. You're welcome to the program.
Hi, Harry. Thanks.
Adams Lojok. It's good to have you.
Thank you so much.
And our Chief Resource Person, Dr. Reggie. It's good to have you.
Thanks, Onari.
Okay, Obi Brown, straight up with the questions.
The first part of this program threw up a lot of things, and there's a lot of dust in the air. Let's get the dust down. So what's your take on the probes? Are you for it? Are you against it? Are you in the middle? Where exactly? What should people say?
My issue here is that I can't be for or against. Probe, if there is a crime, it should be punished. That's my position.
And it shouldn't depend on who is the president. It should be normal.
It shouldn't be a schedule of duty, right, for president. It's a societal thing. That money that has been stolen is not the president's money. It's Nigerians' money. The Nigerian nation, Nigerian society should punish anyone, regardless of your status, regardless of your political leaning, should punish everyone.
But I guess we're just emerging from a time where nobody was being punished. Yeah. And of course, as politicians, they need to give people what they want. Apparently, what people wanted to see people punished. Yeah. So he said he was going to punish people. Originally, he said he was not going to punish. But now he says he wants to punish, and some people find it nice, some people don't really like it. Like you said, it's also, the ethnic thing is also entering, right? But he's a politician. Yeah. So, what my question is, imagine from a society that never punished anybody, right? How then do we get to a society where the president doesn't need to be involved? If the president doesn't sort of, take that responsibility hands-on for a start, until we're able to get to a society where the judiciary and the law enforcement agencies take it up as a regular everyday duty.
We're not really saying that the president should be totally, disconnected from this, right? The president is the chief servant of the country, right? He has to oversee the fact that, the law works, right? But a situation where it becomes the hashtag of the government, right? That's where it distracts the government being headed by the president from their major duty, right? Their major duty is not to fight corruption, but they can they can actually create the atmosphere where corruption is naturally fought. Because they say that to prevent corruption is better than fighting it. And preventing it is putting a system in place that makes sure that there is no way you can use your position to insulate yourself from being tried. So if the Nigerian society were still debating whether people should be tried or not, it basically says that we're still a bit back there. But if this president really, as he has promised, want to open a new page in terms of dealing with the culture of impunity, it's a question now, we should be looking at the question of what kind of resources do we have at our disposal to actually fight corruption? Do we have the necessary resource in terms of prosecution, in terms of investigation, that will not be colored by political, ethnic sentiments? Do we have the judicial system that is indeed very independent, that will look at the law for itself? Those are the kind of things I believe if the president really wants to do that, it should be done with that kind of a dispassionate way. Let's develop the judicial system. Let's develop the law enforcement system. And honestly, that thing becomes...
Yeah. Because I guess right now, the level at which our society is one where almost ultimate power belongs to the guy in charge. Yeah. We talked about it on this program, some time ago, where the judiciary says something and the executive decides not to do anything about it. So I guess that's where we are. Because there is also the rise of civil society organizations that are becoming some sort of corruption watchdogs. You must have heard of CACOL, And there was a time in the last dispensation, Plateau State, where a civil society organization that tried to, put some heat under the governor. And
which time was this? This year, last regime?
The last regime, the immediate past regime, right? And it sort of metamorphosed into the legislature calling, for civil servants to come and answer some questions, right? And the governor said anybody who goes there is going to be sacked. Adams, can you remember? Yeah. You remember? So I'm not. I just want to be sure that I'm not talking nonsense. I was made to understand that it was in cahoots with some civil society organizations. There's even a civil society organization in Lagos that tried to raise dust, on Fashola, because there was a World Bank loan that was meant to go into education.
Yeah.
And there were allegations that it wasn't spent on and all that. All those things were coming on the heels of civil society organizations.
Great.
So we find that citizens are trying to do something, but the best they can do
is talk.
Raise the heat.
We can only raise the heat.
But we need to continue that.
Exactly. It's sustaining that pressure until we begin to see things really look like what we want. What we have lacked over the years is that our government officials, they've always had a field day. They've always had a field day. The culture of impunity, which is the bane of our society today, actually starts from there. It starts from there. So the society, the citizens are just, as long as, they're okay, they don't really care. So they bring the heat, and after a while, maybe one of them will enter into politics, and that's the end of it. And then we start the whole process again. But for the purpose of where we are, what we should be actually be rooting for is that we want to see a functional police. I can't get away from that. We can keep talking and talking and talking and talking. If we don't have the correct structure, correct infrastructure, really investing heavily in the police in terms of training, in terms of exposure, because if we go on like this, we can even get involved in another thing that is more corrupt than what we are trying to correct. If we jail somebody, who is innocent, if we don't have the correct investigation, I want to see a policeman who can ask great questions. We want to see technology like the way we see it abroad, when somebody is lying and that kind of a thing.
Yeah, I want to ask a question. We're talking about the citizens being, active in their political roles. What about the police? Are they as politically conscious as they should be? You understand? Are they biased, or are they exempt from involving themselves into things that will make them ask questions like this?
You are talking now about structure, but police are human beings, right? They are human beings. But again, they are professionals, right? A professional, let me take a very basic example, a very normal example. If you're a footballer, you're a human being, right? And if you play a match, even if you lose, you still hug the opponent. There's a way to behave professionally. When you are a footballer, when you are in a match situation, even if the goalkeeper is your sibling, you won't say you won't score against him. Right? My profession says that I need to put the ball in the net, even if the goalkeeper is my mother. Right? So the profession of the police says that it doesn't matter my political leanings. The law of the country must be enforced. A policeman I know by profession cannot be a card-carrying member of a political party. But that doesn't stop him from having political, affiliation, bias, exactly. But his profession gives him his job code. And he will look at that thing objectively. He cannot, because the law rules. Our problem here is that we have not been able to create an environment where the law takes its course. That's the issue here. And I say that we cannot afford to have a system where We are using corruption war as a political game. Let's build a structure. It's as if we keep, we're just repeating this. Let's build the structure. Let's have the infrastructure. We have a police force, that's the structure. But are they well-resourced? Do they have the requisite training? Can they do their work, the work they want to do? Do they have? I mean, there was time I said, in one forum that the lowest paid policeman, right, should be higher than an assistant manager in a bank. Because that lowest paid policeman might need to arrest the assistant manager in the bank one day. If the guy can use money to dissuade him, then there's a problem. And it's not only money, right? It's not only money, right? But the whole package of the guy's office, he must be able to look at the manager in the face, and say that I'm a policeman and, you are under arrest. But if you're going there and the first thing the policeman will say is Oga, or he will salute the guy. That's the system that we have in our hands. So what's playing out there? If we can't see a connection between that and a police that is being reformed, being retrained, being structured properly, I still believe that we're just still playing games. There is pride being a policeman.
Yes. And dignity.
Yeah, but we don't have that here. You look for a job you can't get, you go and join the police.
Exactly.
That's not how to build a law enforcement agency. It must be a thing of pride to say you want to join the police, right? But you see, that pride also, when you enter into that kind of office, that pride will be wounded if you can't afford to send your kid to school. That's, so this thing, they all come together. But a policeman, you don't have to give him that whole money. If by virtue of the fact that you're a policeman, if 4 of your kids, they have scholarship on the government, there's some things you don't want that guy to think about so that he can focus on his work. So for me, the war on corruption should not be a political kind of thing. We're still talking here. We're not building the infrastructure.
Okay, we'll take a short break and be back shortly. Stay tuned to the program.
There are cooking oils and there are cooking oils, Of course, there are those that foam like soap when you put them on fire, and there are those that go to sleep after a few days. There are even those with funny odors that make neighbors wonder what's happening in your kitchen. I beg, don't kill me, oh. But then again, there is Grand Pure Soya Oil, made from pure soya seed. Grand Pure Soya Oil is cholesterol-free, which makes it ideal for the heart and health conscious. It neither foams nor fumes, neither does it congeal even at low temperature. Grand Pure Soya Oil is also endorsed by the Nigerian Heart Foundation as heart-friendly oil.
Let me go and get my own Grand Pure Soya Oil, Joe. Oil that doesn't smell or sleep.
Grand Pure Soya Oil, a heart-friendly oil you've always known.
Welcome back to the program. If you're just tuning in, this is Answers with Dr. Reju. Send us a text or chat us on WhatsApp on 08144569000. That's 08144569000. Adams Lojok.
All right, so we've been talking about police reform. Give recommendations how you would want the police to be reformed. And probably after you do that, let's touch on the prisons. Because prisons have now become like guest houses.
Guest houses?
Yeah.
Wow.
Some of the big shots. When they go there, it's luxury. So, but just, break it down. Give your recommendations. How you want us to reform the police.
Well, the first thing I would say is that police is just is part of a bigger society. So we can't have a police force that is higher than the society that produces it. So there must be, first of all, a very holistic approach to it. But because of the sensitivity, the importance of law enforcement, the police now, in the pecking order, they sort of rank very high. And to reform the police, it starts from the recruitment philosophy. Because let's go into a bit of history. The history of the police in Nigeria is from our colonial days. This police force in Nigeria, they were structured to oppress the citizens, to subject us to the colonial domination. That's still there. Now, we need to build another narrative. And how do we do that? something now that goes into how do we train them? You know, you must train the police with a philosophy of service. And that brings in a sense of worth, a sense of importance for the policeman. He needs to know how important he is. Now, every time I drive past the police barracks in Jos, what goes into my head is that nobody can live in that place and function normally in that kind of barrack. So it goes into what kind of welfare, because I've spoken about training, I've spoken about the philosophy of training, from recruitment. You need to build another kind of philosophy for our police force. A citizen should see a policeman and feel safe. But when I see a policeman now, I don't feel safe. I don't have a mentality, I don't know if I'm different. I don't have the belief that this guy is there for me. I always believe that he's there against me. You know, so then it goes into that kind of welfare where they live. A lot of people, they have campaigned that police, you don't live in a barrack, they should live with the people. If you don't correct what's in the mind, it doesn't matter where they live. If they live with the people, if they live in the barracks, if something in the mind is wrong, they will still malfunction. So it goes into that kind of welfare. What kind of environment should we give the policeman and his family to live in? He can be in the barracks, but it should be respectful. It should be something that has some, you know, some semblance of respect. When you have a kind of an educational system for their kids that is different from what the generality of families, you know, benefit from, that it takes a policeman who is a bit, who has a bit of a unique advantage to take his kids to a private school, then you are not building, you know, a good police system. I spoke with a police officer that I know very well, a lady who said that she buys her uniform. It has a recipe for chaos. If the police personnel had to buy, I don't care how it is structured. If it's now been given money in lieu, it is monetized. No, it doesn't give that police personnel some element of respect, right? He should see that my nation cares for me. He shouldn't even know the amount, what the uniform cost. But for you to give me allowance and then I'll go and buy my uniform. So you see a policeman looking unkept. This is the guy who is going to enforce the law. This is a policeman who should be able to walk up to a governor and say, you're under arrest. And you know, if you don't call a policeman officer, he's offended. Right? He's offended. If you read the history of police force, a police station is actually called a constabulary. So the most respected title for a policeman is a constable. But call him constable here, it's a problem. It's because the mentality has not been, you know, there's not been proper grooming. So I have a personal, you know, kind of passion for the police force. It's a profession I would have loved to be in. And because I believe, you know, in the respect, you know, that it carries, the dignity for being entrusted with such. So that would be my take. Training, you know, good training, exposure, and then good equipping. The last time I went to the police station here in Jos to go and get a report for me to apply for one visa, they were still using, if you know what they used to collect thumbprint, is this manual kind of, they use Kandahar. I don't know, the children out there won't even know what Kandahar is. You know, it's in this age of technology, you know, so they must have all those kind of resources at their disposal. But if you have the resources and you have not trained them to use it, you still come back to zero. So a lot of people also talk about the judiciary, which maybe we might talk about, but the police is really the key.
Yeah.
Is the key.
All right. You know, because I'm just saying that we have a little bit of time, and you just mentioned the judiciary. We know that there is this committee, you know, to give advice to the president on anti-corruption issues. We don't know much about them yet. Maybe we'll do some study on them, but certainly, whenever we hear about high-profile investigations like that of FIFA, that of our man here, former governor, is he lucky? Not lucky. Ibori. Yeah. you know, there is always this synergy between the police and the judiciary, you know. So, what role generally should the judiciary play in corruption, okay? You know, or generally getting a system, a society that purges itself all the time, you know? Because one of the things we always find is that I find the judiciary very far away from me. I find anything that having to do with I can go to the police station, but once they court, think of it as a long way off, you know? Because there are fees involved, right? And then sometimes simple judgments take a lot of time, you know?
There's a whole structure that makes these things so ineffective. We all know what needs to be done, you know. We can't exonerate the judiciary. They always call it the last hope of the masses, right? And I've not seen that work, you know. But it's if we are going to have a judicial system, you know, where things work, it also maybe it will bring me back. What the judge will make the premise is going to use to arrive at a judgment is based on an investigation, right? It's also based on what happens to prosecutor, defense lawyer, and things like that. So you see that within that whole structure, there's still that place of law enforcement. If the judge knows that if I do something that is contrary to the law here, right, I am also culpable, then the guy is fixed. He's now duty bound to make sure that he does the right thing. Adam said, do we have the laws? Honestly, we have the laws. Is it being enforced? He spoke about prisons. I was involved in a case here when somebody was accused of the heinous crime of rape. And this guy was arrested, put in prison custody. And I went back there to go and see the guy has been released. He's been released. The guy was released. We had to go back to the judge who put the guy in prison custody. And then the judge had to go back to the whole structure to make sure the guy was brought back. You see, it's a systemic thing. It's a systemic thing. We can't pick these things in isolation. But honestly, believe me, the nucleus of it is the guy who initiates it. That's the policeman. If I go report a case to in a police station, the policeman doesn't even have a hotline that I can call. The police doesn't have a hotline that I can call. That this is happening here. If we still have a police force where you go and they say they're asking you money to fuel their car to go to a crime scene, we have a problem. We have a problem. Honestly, I'll leave the judiciary in terms of cause and effect. If you fix this, it has a ripple effect. If you fix this, it has a ripple effect. There's a way that happens. If there is a letter of protest from somewhere and it gets to the police, they swing into action. They swing into action. If we are saying about budget to education, budget to law enforcement should also be that heavy.
To the people listening, we should find out how we can lend support to some of these civil society organizations that are coming up, the CACOLs of this world, the budget, and many of them. And there's something we're seeing all over the newspapers right now, single treasury account. Yeah. We should get to know what it is, right? They say it's to promote transparency, okay, and I hope they're not hoodwinking us. But people should get to know what it is and get to know how they can actually see through it. If it's really transparent, we should be able to see what's going on. Is this something that we can always just use the freedom of information, whatever, and say, okay, let's know how much is here right now after 1 month of service, so we should try and get involved.
We've come to the end of this episode. Thank you, Dr. Reju, for being on the program today. Thank you, Adams. Thank you, Obi. We'll be back next week. Give us a call or chat us on WhatsApp on 081-4456-9000. Check out our website and interact with us on www.answerswithdrreju.com. Like our Facebook page, Answers with Dr. Reju, or send us an email at answerswithdrreju@gmail.com. On Twitter, we are Dr. Reju Answers. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, Answers with Dr. Reju, where you can get all our episodes. Join us again on Answers with Dr. Reju, where critical life issues are clarified.